Hi, everybody. I wanted to start um, our first easy chapter book with a Magic Treehouse book, and it is called Hurricane Heroes in Texas. So you'll be able to read along if you'd like to, or you can just listen. And I'm going to try to do at least 1 to 2 chapters a day, and we'll get through this in no time. So get started with the prologue. All right. One summer day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. It was filled with books. A boy named Jack and his sister Annie found they could go to any time or place in history just by pointing to a picture in one of the books. While they were gone, no time at all had passed back in Frog Creek. Jack and Annie eventually found out that the treehouse belonged to Morgan Le Fay, a magical librarian from the legendary realm of Camelot. Since then, they have traveled on many adventures in the magic treehouse and completed many missions for Morgan. In Magic Treehouse books number 29 through 32, Morgan has given Jack and Annie a new challenge. They must learn important truths from heroes who have helped the world. On their last adventure, Jack and Annie learned a great lesson from baseball star Jackie Robinson. Now they are just about to find out where Morgan will send them next. All right, Chapter 1, Lone Star State. Jack and Annie sat on their front porch. They were waiting for their mom to take them to baseball practice. Tap, tap, tap. Raindrops splattered on the porch steps. A strong breeze shook the leaves. Uh-oh, said Annie. Do you think a storm is coming? I can't tell, said Jack, looking up at the clouds. Sorry, kids, their mom called from inside. Coach Dave just emailed no practice today. Darn, said Jack. That's okay, said Annie. Now we can go to the woods. The woods? Asked Jack. Why? I woke up with a feeling, Annie said in a hushed voice. Something really important is going to happen today. I thought it was baseball practice, like maybe I'd hit a home run or something, but now, she smiled at Jack. Really? You think? He said. Yes, hold on, I'll get our stuff. And Annie hurried out inside. A moment later, she returned with 2 small umbrellas and Jack's backpack. She handed over the pack and one of the umbrellas. Mom says as long as there's no thunder and lightning, we can take a walk. Great, said Jack, and he pulled on his pack. To the woods. To the treehouse, said Annie. Jack and Annie opened their umbrellas and headed out into the rain. They ran down the sidewalk, across the street, and into the misty Frog Creek woods. Raindrops fell softly as they hurried between the trees. The air smelled of wet leaves and damp earth. Finally, Jack and Annie came to the tallest oak tree in the woods. Yay, Jack whispered. Annie laughed. Glad it rained today? Totally, said Jack. He and Annie folded up their umbrellas and climbed up the rope ladder. The magic treehouse was dry and shadowy inside. A book was lying on the floor. A purple leather bookmark was sticking out from the pages. Lying on the top of the book was a necklace. It had a thin gold chain and a glass star. The star was no bigger than a penny, and it gave off a soft yellow glow. Wow, a little star, said Annie, picking up the necklace. I wonder what it's for. Yeah, and where we're going, asked Jack, and he picked up the book. The cover showed a red, white, and blue flag with one big star, and the title said, The History of Texas, the Lone Star State. Great, back to Texas, said Jack. I love Texas, said Annie. Remember when we met Slim and saved Dusty's colt? Yup, said Jack in a low voice. Annie laughed. Jack was imitating their cowboy friend Slim. Jack turned to the page with the purple bookmark. He and Annie looked at an old black and white photo of a city by the ocean. Galveston, Texas, Annie read. I've heard of that city. Me too, said Jack. Did Morgan leave us a note? I don't see one, said Annie. Is there anything written on the back of the bookmark? Jack turned the bookmark over. Yes, he said. Tiny writing was painted on the leather, and he read aloud. The place you must go on this late summer day is an island in Texas between Gulf and Bay. We're here to help is what you must say. Seek high ground now and do not delay. Jack looked up. Why do people need help? He asked. And why should they seek high ground? Good question, said Annie. Keep reading. Jack read the next part. For those in the dark, adrift and astray, a single bright star can show them the way. So that must explain this, said Annie, and she held up the necklace with the star. But it's so small, said Jack, and not really bright. How can it show the way to anything? Go on, read the last part, said Annie. And Jack read the last lines of the rhyme. Learn from a hero who is humble and brave, who welcomes the hundreds arriving on waves. What does that mean? Asked Jack. I don't know, said Annie. Let's go to Texas and find all the answers. She hung the star necklace around her neck. Wait, do we have our Pennsylvania book to help us get back home? Asked Jack, and they looked around the treehouse. There, said Annie, and she pointed to the Pennsylvania book in a shadowy corner. Okay, all set, said Jack, and he placed his finger on the picture of Galveston, Texas. I wish we could go there, he said. And the wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 2. Welcome to Galveston. Tap, tap, tap. Soft rain fell on the roof of the treehouse. A gentle breeze shook the leaves outside. Old-fashioned clothes, said Annie. She and Jack were both wearing stockings, leather shoes, and shirts with sailor collars. Annie wore a cotton shirt, and Jack wore knee pants. Their two small umbrellas had changed into one large black umbrella with a bamboo handle. Jack's backpack is now a thick canvas knapsack. We wore clothes like these when we went to San Francisco in 1906, said Jack. Maybe we've come to the same time. He and Annie looked out the window. The treehouse had landed in a spreading oak tree in someone's backyard. From the window, Jack and Annie could see all the way across the city of Galveston. They saw wooden houses, fancy-looking mansions, stables and barns, horse buggies and street trolleys. This could definitely be the early 1900s, said Annie. No cars or trucks anywhere. Right, said Jack, and he pulled out their Texas book and found Galveston in the index. He read out loud. The city of Galveston, Texas, was built on a long, narrow island between the Gulf of Mexico and Galveston Bay. Exactly what our rhyme says. An island in Texas between Gulf and Bay, said Annie. Jack kept reading. In the late 1800s, Galveston was the third busiest seaport in the United States. Ships from all over the world docked there. The thriving city had almost 40,000 residents. It was also a popular tourist resort. That's us, a couple of tourists, said Annie. Come on, let's explore the city. Okay, said Jack, but the main thing we have to do is find the people Morgan wants us to help. Jack put their Texas book in his knapsack. Annie grabbed their old-fashioned umbrella. Wow, this is heavy, she said. Toss it to the ground, Jack said. Annie lowered the long folded umbrella out the window and dropped it. Then she and Jack climbed down the rope ladder, and they stepped onto the soggy grass. The rain fell harder. Jack picked up the umbrella and opened it. It was heavy and awkward, but this black canopy easily covered both of them. Hey, people are at home in that house, said Annie. Hear them? Not far from the oak tree was a blue house with a wide front porch. It was set about 5 feet off the ground on brick pillars. From the open window came cries of a baby and then a woman's voice singing, Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird. She has a pretty voice, said Annie. Yeah, but let's hurry out of her yard before she discovers us and the treehouse, said Jack. Holding the huge umbrella under them, Jack walked with Annie to the gate of an iron fence. They slipped out of the yard onto the street. Look, we're on Avenue L, said Jack, pointing to a street sign. When it's time to go back to the treehouse, we'll need to come back here. Got it, said Annie. Blue house, iron fence, Avenue L. Rain pelted their umbrella as Jack and Annie started down the avenue. The street was lined with spreading oaks and wooden houses. Nearly all the houses had wide front porches and were set on brick pillars. Small children were playing in the rain puddles. A gust of wind nearly ripped the umbrella out of Jack's hands. The wind blew the rain sideways, soaking their clothes. A horse and buggy clattered past, and mud splattered their shoes and stockings. Yikes, let's get inside somewhere, said Annie. Good idea, said Jack. Jack and Annie walked faster until they turned the corner of Avenue L and 25th Street. Heading down 25th, they passed a blacksmith's shop, a shoemaker, and a hat maker. Annie stopped in front of the Lone Star Cafe. Should we go in there? She asked. Yes, said Jack, and he closed their huge umbrella. A bell jangled over the door as Jack and Annie entered the crowded cafe. The warm, damp room smelled of coffee and bacon. Jack and Annie sat at a table near a rain-streaked window. As they watched others hurry into the cafe, men in cowboy hats and suits, and women in flowered bonnets and long skirts, everyone seemed cheerful as they shook the rain from their umbrellas and hats. So who exactly are we supposed to help in Galveston, said Jack, and where's high ground? I'll ask, said Annie, and she turned to a gray-haired couple at the table next to them. Excuse me, where is high ground in Galveston? High ground is that way, missy, said the older man, pointing to the right. We call it uptown. The lowest ground is along the Strand, said the woman in a squeaky voice. She pointed to the left. It's the street that runs beside the Gulf. But that's a funny question. You're not from here, are you? No, we're tourists from Pennsylvania, said Annie. Well, welcome to Galveston, said the old woman. Thanks, said Annie, and she turned her back to Jack. One question answered. Good, but now we have more, he said. He pulled out their Texas book and read softly to Annie. By the end of the 1800s, many considered the island of Galveston to be the leading city in Texas. Its port was filled with ships, its hotels and restaurants were filled with tourists, its neighborhoods had nice homes and schools. The city seemed to have everything. Sounds like a great place, said Annie. Jack kept reading. But one day, all that changed. Uh-oh, said Annie, and Jack read on. On September 8th, 1900, Galveston suffered the worst natural disaster in U.S. history. A deadly storm, later known as the Great Galveston Hurricane, swept across the island. Oh, man, said Jack. A scary thought came to him. His heart started to pound. What's today's date? He asked. Annie turned back to the couple. Excuse me again, do you know what today's date is? She asked. September 8th, the woman said with a friendly smile. 1900? Jack asked. Why, yes. You didn't know that? The woman asked. Jack just shrugged. His mouth was suddenly so dry he could hardly speak. He looked back at Annie. Her eyes were huge. We got here just in time, Annie whispered. Right, said Jack, for the worst natural disaster in U.S. history. Yikes. This sounds pretty like it's going to get really exciting fast. So we will continue on with chapter 3 and 4 tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.